I deleted 20% of my data from last night and my image got sharper. Look at this. The left side is all data, the right side is the culled stack. Tighter stars and better detail. Today I'm going to show you why you need to be deleting your own files and the automated way to do it in Siril so you're left with pure gold. Let's go. We need to talk about FWHM. But don't click off, it's very simple. It stands for full width at half maximum. It sounds really complicated, doesn't it? But it's actually just a way to measure how fat your stars are. Imagine looking at a single star from the side. Ideally, a star should be a tiny pinprick of light. But because of the atmosphere and optics, it spreads out into a hill shape or a bell curve. To measure sharpness, we go halfway down that hill to half maximum intensity, and we measure how wide the hill is at that point. This width is your full width, half maximum intensity number. If the number is low, for example 2 or 3 pixels, your hill is skinny and your star is razor sharp. If the number is high, for example 6 or 7 pixels, your hill is a fat blob and your image is going to be blurry. Lower is always better when it comes to FWHM. That's the goal. In other words, the FWHM is a way for us to measure how sharp a star appears in an astrophotography image by looking at its brightness profile. This FWHM number can help us to check focus and assess atmospheric conditions and seeing and improve astrophotography results. This is why I've recommended that when you do filter your frames, you filter them by FWHM. Although roundness is also another way to do that, as we've just discussed. First, we need to understand what we're actually fighting. Why is one frame good and the next one bad? It usually comes down to 3 things. 1, seeing. The atmosphere is turbulent, like looking through water. 2, wind. Even a tiny breeze shakes my rig. 3, tracking errors. The gears aren't perfect, and unless you're willing to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on the most wonderful and most high quality mount, then your tracking will have errors. When stacking software combines your images, it averages out everything. If you mix 50 crisp images with 10 blurry ones, the math doesn't just ignore the blurry ones, it drags the average quality down. It dilutes your sharpness. Think of your telescope like a pen. On a good night, it draws sharp dots. But on a windy night, or when seeing is bad, your telescope turns into a spray can. The light goes everywhere. If you stack a spray can frame on top of a fine pen frame, you just ruined your sharp image. We need to find the spray can frames and kill them. For a few years now, what I've been doing is I've been going through my images manually one by one and deleting the bad frames. Of course, this relies on my eye and where exactly I draw the line. Perhaps something more scientific can improve our images. Well, I've now found a nice way to use a free piece of software I love called Siril, which does this automatically, which not only speeds up things, it does it in a scientific way. And also, if I use very short exposures and if I have many, many hundreds of images, it can be really, really slow and boring to go through every single one. So this method really does save a lot of time and can really improve your images. Actually, pause the video for a second, will you? I want you to open your last session in Siril or whatever software you use right now. Go to the plot tab. I guarantee you, there is a massive spike in your graph that you didn't notice. That one spike is actively making your final image softer. In fact, there are probably many of these spikes. I know there are when I look at my plot. Go look, see if I'm right, then come back. Okay, let's automate this. Load your sequence in Siril and go to the plot tab. This is your lie detector. First, Look at the FWHM graph, full width at half maximum. See how it's mostly flat, but then jumps up here? That's where the seeing got bad or the wind picked up. We don't want these spikes. Go to the stacking tab. Don't just hit stack. Look at the filtering options. I can tell Siril only keep the frames where FWHM is below 4 or is below 5.28 or whatever number I want to choose. Or even easier, you can filter out and keep the best 85% of images based on FWHM. Siril will automatically uncheck the worst 15%. Boom, the spray can frames are gone. But wait a second, sharpness is not the only metric. There is a second killer known as eccentricity. What is that? Well, you have a very sharp frame that has trailing stars because your mount kicked or moved slightly. The stars are thin, but they are ovals. FWHM might not catch that because the star is technically thin in one direction. To get round this problem, you can filter in Siril by roundness. If you're really chasing perfection, first delete the blurry frames using high FWHM, and second delete the trailed frames. This ensures your stars are tight and round. Now, is there ever a time you should keep the trash? Yes, there is. It's a trade-off between sharpness and noise, signal to noise ratio. If you're shooting a very faint target and you only have 1 hour of data, deleting 20% of it might make your image way too noisy. You lose the smoothness of the background. But if you have 10 hours of data, you can afford to be ruthless. Deleting the worst 1 hour won't hurt your noise much, but it will massively help your sharpness. The more data you have, the pickier you should be. So here's the rule. Don't be a data hoarder. Trust the math. If a frame is bad, it's not adding signal, it's adding pollution. Let it go. Try this on your next stack. Filter out the worst 10 or 20% and compare the result. I think you'll be surprised. If you want to learn more about how I capture this data in the first place, check out the links in my description, including a link to my gear, a link to my phone cases, which I'm now launching, and catch you in the next one.